Hello, my lovely dreamers. It's really nice to see you again. I'm always happy to see you again. I'm Christina. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to old school ASMR sounds. And welcome back to a new episode of True Crime Sunday. Today's story is about a very, very known case that was called at the time Fatal Attraction, the Fatal Attraction case, due to the fact that I think 2 years before that case happened, the famous movie had appeared and had been a great success, and the media decided to call that case the Fatal Attraction case due to the similarities with the movie itself. But this just happened for real, unfortunately. I remember that I used to follow this case and I saw both movies, Fatal Attraction and the movie that was later on made, inspired by the real story. And I now, judging from nowadays and taking into account the information that I have today, I know today that I was manipulated back then to believe what I did then. I really not hated, but I really disliked Carolyn Warmus. We're talking about her today, and I really thought that she was the author of this crime. But after seeing an interview of it just happened, it appeared in my feed. I found an interview. It was a little bit older, back to 2016, I think. And she has now such a kind person's face. I know you cannot judge a person according to his or her appearance, but she seems to be such a nice person, and I decided just to go deeper and see if there is something wrong with this case, because sometimes media focus on what they think it would sell. So they didn't focus on the victim. They focus on the victim when the victim sells their stories. They focused back then on Carolyn because she sold. She was absolutely gorgeous, she was rich, she was smart, she had everything, and she sold. Her story sold. So every story that you try to find about this case just revolves around Carolyn, and you found very little information about Paul himself, about his wife, the victim. So in fact this story is about the victim. A woman was killed. A woman's life was taken, brutally taken, but the media decided to talk only about Carolyn Warmus. So I'm going to present you the case as it was. And if you want, you can just Google and just find the interviews with Carolyn. Maybe you will ask yourself some questions, as I have just done. I think that someone might have just got away with murder in this case, which is really, really sad. I remember that I believed when I first found stories about this case years ago. I believed everything I saw, but I still wonder how could someone like Carolyn, who was 23, who was stunningly beautiful, who had everything, how could she just do something like that and lose everything that she had? She could have had every man she wanted, but still she had a lot of boyfriends, and she decided to kill Paul Solomon's wife. That was a little bit strange. So let's see what is the story about. It was the 15th of January, 1989. For Betty Jean, who was an accountant executive, she was 14 years old, and her husband of 16 years, they have been married for 16 years, Paul Solomon, who was a 6th grade teacher. So it was a normal day for them. They were enjoying the fact that they had the whole house for themselves, as their daughter, Kristen, was away skiing with a friend. Normal couples day, normal apartment, a normal American family. To a married couple enjoying life and enjoying each other. Nothing unusual. Later on that evening, Paul decided to go bowling and left his wife at home. Early in the evening of the same day, 15th January 1988, a New York telephone dispatcher of the 911 line received a terrifying call from a woman who needed help. She screamed, "He's trying to kill me." But the dispatcher later admitted that she was not able to remember if the woman said he or she. The call disconnected, and the dispatcher contacted the police immediately. They tried to trace the call, but were directed to a wrong address. A few hours later, it was 11:42 p.m., Paul Solomon called the police after returning from bowling and finding his wife deceased. He later told that when he came back home he found the house in complete darkness except for the TV, which was on and pretty loud. Betty Jean was shot 9 times. There was was there was no sign of forced entry. Nobody heard anything. There was no evidence of a fight, a struggle. Only that disconnected phone. Next to Betty Jean's body, there was a black cashmere glove. The glove was later on tested, and apparently there was no blood found on it. And nobody collected that glove. The glove remained in the house. The police gave that glove to Paul. Imagine this. Because apparently they didn't find blood on it. The police detective suspected Betty Jean's husband Paul right away. He was allowed to change his clothes and wipe his hands. He said that when he returned from the bowling, he found, as I have told you, the house in complete darkness. It was only the TV on, and he found his wife on the floor, and apparently he thought that she was sleeping on the floor. I don't know. When he turned on the light, he saw that she was full of blood, and he decided to call the police. The police arrived, and they didn't collect all the evidence, and they allowed Paul Solomon to wipe his hands and change his clothes. But there is a little bit more to this story. So the police suspected Paul Solomon. He had to admit that he went bowling that evening, but he stayed there only for a few minutes because he had to meet at a restaurant. He had to meet his lover, Carolyn Warmus. So he met Carolyn because they had previously decided to meet. So he lied his wife that he was going bowling. He was in fact going to meet Carolyn. They met at the restaurant. They had a nice dinner, talked about the future. He mentioned that if someone had happened to his wife, he would never get married again. He mentioned that he would like to see Carolyn happily married to someone else. They went to the parking lot. They had a close encounter, if you know what I mean, in her car. And after this, he returned home to find his wife killed with 9 bullets. Who was Carolyn Warmus? Carolyn Warmus, you already know. I'm sure that you already know that she served 27 years in prison. She was paroled in 2016. She was suffering back then of a brain tumor, and she was accused in the end of killing in cold blood his lover's wife, as she previously had some stories of obsessive jealousy. Carolyn had a privileged life. Her father was a millionaire, so she was rich. She had everything she wanted. She had 2 siblings, a sister Tracy and a brother Tommy. Their parents divorced when she was 8, and they went to live with their mother. Her father left his mother for his secretary, and the secretary wasn't a very good stepmother for the children. She didn't really like them too much. But when Carolyn was 14, her mother remarried, and she and her siblings moved to their father. Their father was not very present in the children's life. Their stepmother didn't like them too much, but everything was compensated with money, so the children had everything they wanted. Carolyn proved to be a bright, very, very smart young woman, extremely beautiful, hard-working. She had a degree in psychology at the University of Michigan, and later won a master's degree in teaching. She had a lot of ex-boyfriends who, some of them reported that she was kind of obsessive and jealous and possessive. And one of them, named also Paul, got a restriction order after leaving her, because he and his fiancée were afraid that Carolyn would spoil their wedding. Carolyn was very classy. She wore expensive clothes, jewelry, had a luxurious apartment, was smart, and still she was accused of forging documents and of credit card frauds. In spite of having a lot of money, she really tried to commit credit card frauds. Charges were dropped, but still this is interesting to know. She was 23 when she met Paul Solomon. She went to teach at Greenville School, which was one of the best schools in the district. Paul was 38 at that time. It was said that Carolyn was extremely good as a teacher. She taught computer science back then, that her students loved her and appreciated her. Paul was 38 back then and was at first her mentor. It was also said that she saw in him a fatherly figure. I strongly doubt this. And Paul was a wandering guy, to say so. He had a few affairs, not very serious, but still. He didn't wear his wedding ring, and I think he was really flattered to be the mentor of this stunningly beautiful young woman. And they were friends, and gradually this friendship turned into something else. They began having an affair. Carolyn said that she believed that he was divorced. Of course, because he didn't wear a wedding ring, but, of course, he discovered that he was in fact married, had a daughter, Kristen, and Paul explained that still he was in an open marriage, that his wife had her affairs, he has had his affairs, and so on. They're in an open marriage, and that he was planning to divorce his wife as soon as their daughter finishes high school. I don't know, maybe because Carolyn had such a bad stepmother, she tried to get close to Kristen and showered her with gifts. Maybe that was her way of showing love, because her father did the same. Instead of being present, she didn't know how to show her love in a different way. Maybe, I'm just saying. She bought expensive gifts for Kristen for her 15th anniversary birthday. She bought a diamond bracelet and some very expensive outfits. And she was invited in the Solomon's family's house. She came for dinner. And their daughter Kristen later on told them that her mother didn't like Carolyn too much, and she was afraid to tell her mother about the gifts because of that. 3 months, I think, in their relationship, Paul sent her a postcard saying that he was desperately in love with her. But still, later, at the end of 1987, he tried to end the affair. They still got back in 1988, in that summer. But still, Paul was definitely not fully committed. But we cannot say the same about Carolyn. It seems that Carolyn really wanted a future with Paul, but he was not very serious about this. Probably he just wanted little affairs, and that's it. He didn't want anything serious to happen. And then in January 1989, Paul's wife was killed with 9 bullets in her own apartment. So at first, as I have told you, the police thought that Paul was the main suspect, but then they, because he had an alibi, the bowling thing and stuff, they turned their attention to Carolyn. So who else was interested in seeing Betty Jean? That. So Carolyn, of course. And the press, the media started to dig and found out about her previous stories, about her jealousy, about her obsessive behavior and so on. And they portrayed her as a person who cannot accept losing someone. The spoiled rich girl who has to get everything that she wants, and if there is something against, she has to find a way of getting rid of that thing. In this case, the thing against what she wanted was Paul's wife. That's what the press said. Carolyn volunteered to the lie detector test, which she passed, so she was telling the truth. She passed the lie detector test. But still, she was arrested and accused of Betty Jean's murder based on circumstantial evidence. Nobody had seen her. There wasn't any kind of direct evidence. There was no trace of DNA or blood, anything. Just what they got at the trial. They got that glove, which they returned to Paul. First time. After Betty Jean's death, Carolyn tried to get closer again to Paul and to Kristen. She gifted Kristen some diamond earrings and wrote to Paul telling that he needed a little bit of happiness for himself. He offered to come and cook dinners and help them. I guess she was still in love with him. And police thought that was suspicious enough to turn her into their main suspect. Paul wasn't interested any longer. He turned his attention to another colleague called Barbara and told the police that Carolyn was stalking them and that she followed them to Puerto Rico. But Carolyn later said that she was completely innocent and that she was invited to Puerto Rico by Paul, who called her in order to invite her there. And Carolyn declared that she was framed. She was totally framed. So, police consider her the main suspect, and they tried to find or fabricate evidence in order to support their case. What did they have? They had Vincent Parco, who was the detective that Carolyn had previously hired to follow an ex-boyfriend. Vincent Parco declared to the police that he sold Carolyn in the early of 1989 a .25 caliber gun with a silencer, just the same type of gun with which Betty Jean was killed. But they had never found the gun, and Carolyn had always said that she had never owned a gun. She had never bought a gun from Vincent. It was only Vincent's word. And they found out that she bought ammunition from a shop using the driving license of a colleague of hers. So she had previously, it was supposed that she had stolen that driving license in order to buy ammunition for that gun. But at that shop nobody remember details or exactly anything about her. They also found a call, a registered call made from her apartment to that shop. But again, Carolyn said that it wasn't true, that it was either a mistake or they fabricated that evidence again. For being witnesses in her trial, Paul and the private detective they both got immunity. So Carolyn was arrested in February 1990. Her father paid the bail, and the trial started in January 1991. Again, the press focused of course, on Carolyn. She appeared in a very expensive pink suit, descending from a limousine, wearing stiletto heels and sunglasses and a hat. I am sure that you know the picture. And when she was trying to descend from the car, her skirt appeared to be very short. And the media, the journalists just caught that moment and exploited it. She was again presented as the rich girl, spoiled girl, wearing expensive clothes, seducer who got rid of her lover's wife. She had a great defense team who pointed out that Paul was in fact a cheater, that he sold the story. He was grieving so hard that he had to sell the story, and the movie was made, and that he got his wife's life insurance also, and Vincent was also discredited, of course. So this was a mistrial, and in January 1992 there was another trial when, guess what? The mysterious glove appeared after 3 years. So they hadn't collected that glove at first, because there wasn't anything on it. After 3 years, Paul appeared with that glove and said that he had found it in a box in the wardrobe. And guess what? It had traces of blood on it also. It was a black cashmere glove. Carolyn said that it wasn't hers. Carolyn said that he indeed bought a pair of gloves like that, but that she had them both. And that glove was considered a very important piece of evidence, although the judge refused to be tested. Carolyn was condemned of second-degree murder, and she had spent 27 years of her life in prison. She is now a middle-aged woman, because nowadays 55, she was 55 I think when she was released. Is not quite old, but still, she lost the best years of her life. I read that she had a brain surgery. She had a brain tumor. And if she is indeed innocent, because the interviewer said that maybe it's your last interview because of her illness, and you have the occasion to tell the truth. Are you innocent or guilty? And she continues to say that she is innocent. If she really is innocent, and the police fabricated this evidence in order to find a scapegoat, that is extremely sad. To think that someone could send you to jail based on what? Because they think so. Just let me know what you think. I told you that I was convinced that she was guilty when I watched the documentary on this case some years ago. But nowadays I'm not very sure about this, and I think that someone might have got away with murder. One of the defense's supposition was that someone was hired to commit that murder, and that someone might have been the private detective himself, but he got immunity, and so did Paul. Paul continues to live. I'm not sure if he's still living there, but he lived after the murder in the same apartment. He retired from that very school in 2011. He remarried, and he had a very nice and happy life. He still has. And someone, maybe a scapegoat, paid for this. Another interesting thing is that Paul declared that he didn't know the private detective, but they later on found evidence that they knew each other, and they also talked on the phone. And another thing, Carolyn had always wanted that glove to be tested. I read that they tested it in the end, and the result was inconclusive, and they had never tested the semen found in Betty Jean. They never tested that glove, just they had tested it recently. They just focused on Carolyn, and that's it, tried to find evidence to condemn her. Alright, when I started filming it was still light in the room, but it grew darker and darker. It's not very late in the evening, but days are shorter now that it is autumn. Please let me know in the comments what is your opinion. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, please drop a like or consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching or listening, and see you next time. Bye bye.